Hello, Zizaran here, and I am proud to introduce both Mathil and Steelmage, and we are going to be bringing you another episode of the Stalling Podcast. And we are about to talk about the upcoming Ultimatum League. And yeah, it looks like a juicy one. Mathil, first impressions of Ultimatum?
Yeah, it looks like a juicy one. I mean, the usual, just like everyone else. It looks a little bit ritual-esque, but I don't know. It looks more rewarding, a bit more fun. I think somehow, like there's not going to be as much choice to make between your items, like a little shop. You just get a certain item and then go for it, or decide if you want to pull out and not do as much. And there's less involved, there's less like the fact that there's 2 to 4 rituals per map felt a bit grindy, whereas that entire thing you just like commit once and then, decide if you're going harder or not. Or you can just skip it. I feel like, yeah, it's a bit more exciting for me. Personally, as a league mechanic, I'm looking forward to it more than the previous ones.
And how do you feel about the medium core aspect of it, where you like it's sort of similar to Heist, right? Where if you fail it, you can lose everything. Do you like that?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think so, because you'll find your balance, right? You'll find your middle ground at some point. You'll be like, oh yeah, I can tackle this much, or that mod is too bad for me, or
Mhm.
there's no way, I can get to 10. Um, so I don't know. You'll learn what you're going to risk and how you're going to risk, and then there's going to be a little bit of extra risk in certain fights, and maybe you lose some stuff, and you're supposed to, right? Not everything's supposed to just be cruisy, smooth sailing.
Yeah. And Steelmage, what about you? Do you have any first impressions to the upcoming Ultimatum League?
So obviously I know the devs don't like this, but obviously people are looking at it from the perspective of ritual, right? So they're calling it Ritual 2. And my major complaint with the Ritual was the top end rewards went like, so it was a bit random for starters. So you didn't have a lot of control. You just had to speed run a ton of rituals, right? So I really like the idea that like if your character is capable and you're willing to risk it a bit, you have that potential for much more consistent good rewards, right? So I really like that. My main worry, obviously, and I'm gonna like defer to you here, is how rippy is it gonna be? Because if it's gonna be challenging, uh, you know what I mean. Usually the balance for these challenging league mechanics takes a week at least. So I'll let you do that. You know, you know what I'm saying?
I think it's
So
gonna be very ripping by the looks of it.
I
Like
I think so too.
Yeah.
the way it ramps, and there's gonna be more and more shit, and the just some of those mods seem so uncomfortable. And like just looking at the, I think the Inscription Ultimatum, whatever it was, the actual map ones, they looked insane. Like fuck that. My experiences on hardcore tell me I'm never touching that on hardcore.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Steelmage actually like saying he lets me beta test the new league before trying it himself. Because if I'm still alive, like in Harvest, then it's probably pretty safe. Because I actually do try the new league mechanic on a fresh league, and quite a few times it just ends up in my character getting annihilated. So I will definitely be interacting with the league mechanic. And obviously a worry there for me is like it going from 0 to 100 real quick and me just getting absolutely smashed. And I really wonder like how rewarding do you think it's gonna be like between like 5 times in and 10 times in?
Well,
What do
the
you mean for to get to those stages? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
well, it sounds like they're doing a mix here. You know how sometimes they balance things through difficulty, sometimes they balance it through RNG. Sounds like the 10, the I don't know what we're calling them, the 10 ways, the 10 waves, whatever, are actually balanced partially by rarity as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully it won't be like too crazy in
True.
terms of rippy.
I really like the so something they showed in Ultimatum was the things you can run that double something, like double currency and stuff like that. And that seems to be guaranteed, right? So if you do find one that is like double exalted orbs or double mirrors and you manage to run it, um then you do get it double guaranteed. But I wonder how like dangerous and rippy they're going to be.
Well, like I said, from the ones that they've shown so far, it's you know, imagine like a a corrupted map with 8 mods on it at like tier 13 or some shit. It's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what's on there. And I think that's extremely rippy.
What's a corrupted 8 mod map? I thought maps had like 6 mods. What's corrupted? You can corrupt maps?
I don't think maps go beyond white on the league you guys play.
Oh, okay, that makes
Actually,
sense. And like I've heard people talk about like delirium. How does that work? But yeah, no, honestly, like I'm really looking forward to like trying to push for like all the way going to 10 rewards. And I don't know. I personally think it's so cool because now you have like even if you're on software now, you have like a very large reason, even more than normal, to go for like a very tanky build.
yeah. Apparently my audio is shit. I mean, it's probably best we fix that before we go on too much further.
That's weird. It sounds really good on my end. Is that for everybody in chat? Most people are saying audio is fine.
It's fine. I don't know. I've seen plenty of people say that it's
It might be
whack.
that they have to refresh because sometimes the encoding or the that like weird button you can click. There's like a button that does something with compression.
Oh, right. The FFC thing. Does it sound like I'm using the webcam mic?
No, I don't think so. Like me and Steel would hear that.
Alright.
Yeah.
Kind of you're peaking a little bit, but no, it sounds fine.
All right.
Yeah. I can try turning you down like a little bit. Try speaking now.
Test. Still talking.
Is that better, chat?
It's distorted. I'm too loud, they reckon.
Okay,
It's so
everyone's
much
saying much better. As
There you
if
go.
that was even possible. It's beautiful now.
Wow.
But yeah, another thing that they're doing in the upcoming Ultimatum League is they're reworking so many past mechanics. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Steel, and if there's anything in particular that you're excited for?
Alright, so this is gonna have like sweeping changes across the entire game that aren't necessarily gonna be super exciting for everybody immediately. Because obviously what this means is, so when they say like they're making it so each mechanic ideally will have some reason to run for that league's rewards. So essences, for example, are a good one. I believe the corrupted essences. So this is like the delirium essence, the horror essences, etc. are now specific. Like you have to corrupt the essences themselves now. You can't like drop them randomly from like a grand heist or something, right? I believe that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Or at least
what
less.
this means is yeah. So this means they're taking some of the really exciting rewards from previous league mechanics, and which were kind of spread out across all leagues, right? Like incubators, for example, Legion, like we just said, heist, right? They're taking those out essentially of those pools. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what this is going to have like effect wise on the gameplay. Like
Yeah.
a big one I had, for example, is like, are we going back to farming like actual metamorphs? Because I've been skipping metamorph now. Like if I want catalyst, I do heist, right?
Yeah.
So are we going back to farming metamorphs? Which is not a bad thing, but like
Yeah.
it's a pretty big change, right?
That would be really good. I mean, there'll be a lot of death as well, which is even better.
Yeah.
And what about
You guys
you?
legit never do metamorphs on hardcore or what?
Did 2 in all of hardcore of ritual. Literally 2.
All right. So
Huh?
you would have been watching me do like gauntlet gameplay and going, no,
Yeah.
don't do that. 'Cause I
Literally.
was like doing every metamorph and I'm going, fuck it, how bad could it be?
Yeah, no, literally, whenever I saw you do that, as soon as I saw you, like, especially in the gauntlet, I was like, wow, I don't do them in normal gameplay because there's some combos that are just insane, and you go do it in the fucking
Yeah.
gauntlet. I was like, oh, no.
I mean, they're usually not that bad. I think you've just been a bit unlucky to die to a couple of them with the stuff that you've faced.
Just every
Yeah,
now and then they they hurt, right? They really hurt. Once you've been hurt once badly, you run away. You never want to do it again. It's scary.
I died to 6 of them. I mean, there was like
6? Oh, Jesus, all right. Yeah, you probably shouldn't do anymore.
yeah, I think they just have it out for me. I remember there was one that like took out my like best geared ED guide or ED gear of all time, and it was like just 3-shot by Horror Barrage, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to interact with Metamorph anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Like a classic example, right, Mathil, is you remember Quinn in Betrayal? I mean, Metamorph, sorry. Do you remember Quinn in Metamorph?
Yeah, sure, but that's when it was still kind of being figured out, still pretty,
Right.
all over the place
Yeah.
balance-wise.
Yeah. But I think he had over 20 rips or something absurd. Maybe I don't know.
But they weren't all
It's
from
what
Metamorphs, were they, right?
a lot of them were. I mean, Metamorph is rippy. It is really rippy. So there's a
I
reason. The reason I skip him. There's a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think Metamorph is probably the league mechanic that has been balanced the least, like after being put in the game. I think most things were like very, very heavily nerfed, except Metamorph is kind of still dangerous.
Which is
Yeah, but
fine.
during the league itself, it was all over the place and it was very wacky. I think it's not that bad these days. Like I do every Metamorph on, softcore, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't get too many high roll wacky instances where I might get destroyed. I don't know. It seems pretty balanced these days. I wouldn't be too afraid with a hardcore if I were you.
Do you know?
Unless you died to it 6 times, in which case, yeah.
You know that you saying that is now going to like I'm gonna die to a Metamorph during this league, and somebody's gonna take that clip of you saying I wouldn't be too scared of them in hardcore, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be me dying and going like fuck, and it'll be
So-
like what's that music everyone puts on like clips afterwards? It's like some
What,
like
the-
theme song, like dun dun
The
dun.
coffin music.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's 100% happening now. 100%. Yeah, curb your
I mean-
enthusiasm.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Gotta live a bit dangerously, dude.
I
It's
do.
content for you anyway.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
that.
clutch my logout macro, dude. I'm clutching it.
I mean, yeah, I'm very, very excited for that. I get so many more YouTube videos now just by playing the game. So, but yeah, about all the new league mechanics, Mathil, is there anything out of the new changes you're particularly excited about past league mechanics?
Nothing I could really think of. Like, man, it's hard for me to even narrow anything down because the lead up to a proper patch is always so all over the place in my mind that I hardly ever really focus on what's happening in the patch notes or a specific change and go, oh yeah, that, because I'm just so all over the place with what I have to do for the coming week, So as far as the actual league stuff, no, I can't. I mean, I like the idea of being able to save incursions a lot.
Yeah.
Because at the start of a league, almost always, I don't know if it's like a proper bugged system or something they've put in, you always get so many double corrupts for some reason when you've got nothing to double corrupt. And now you're going to be able to save them and, do it when you actually have something. So that's a really nice change, I think.
Yeah, I really like that too, and that's actually something that's made me want to play Trade League more. It's a combination of the fact that you can't just like spam one mechanic to get every other mechanic's reward anymore, um, and some quality of life things there, like being able to trade and sell and buy incursions. So I think I've actually decided I'm actually going back to Trade League for a league. Uh, it's a lot of pressure from Steelmage because he said that he would like not be my friend anymore unless I did. So
Fake news.
there's a lot of pressure there. But yeah, I think we'll try that. And I think the changes I'm the most excited for is probably the betrayal unveils. Like I kind of wish they utilized lucky rolls just so we had like another avenue of chase items that could actually drop because I don't feel like there's still that many like droppable chase items right now. Most things at the super end game is always going to be crafted. But I'm still just I love the idea of like a higher tier unveil. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, can we talk Paradoxica for just a hot second?
Yeah.
Are they actually buffing Paradoxica?
Yep.
Is that happening? That's disgusting.
Right?
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare. Like, how many of you had Solace Self-Found, for example?
3.
Maybe one a league.
Yeah. So
If I'm
that's
actually doing Betrayal.
Yeah.
exactly, and you have to actually do Betrayal a lot as well.
You
And I
are
don't know,
incentivized
Paradox
to
is
farm it
great
more now
and-
though.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Are you actually going to? Are you going to spend your days farming Betrayal as opposed to everything else?
Yeah.
Yeah, you reckon?
I
See how
think
that
so,
plays
yeah.
out.
I thought Paradoxica was always such a cool item. And for those listening that haven't caught up on what the changes are, unveils have been buffed now. And if you're unveiling on a regular rare item, well, they're not like a enchanted stat anymore. So you can't just click remove craft anymore. It actually gets like it becomes a hard stat on the item. And the ones that you naturally unveil, like obviously you will still have like the craftable unveils that you can craft on rare items as the normal craft later. But if you directly unveil something on an item, for example, Paradoxica, that goes to a whole new tier that's even stronger. So Paradoxica is probably going to be an extreme chase item right now.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of expecting them to pull a 180 and just be like, oh, the ones you unveil from the uniques, oh no, they're the same. Like I'm pessimistic, right? Because if they're actually buffing Paradoxica with the Savior is like a really powerful combination.
Yeah.
And Paradoxica is the equivalent of like, depending on how much flat you've got, like 500-600 Fizz DPS. So buffing it puts it up to like
600-700.
yeah, it'll be filthy. It'll be filthy.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting it
Yeah.
to pull a 180, but I don't know.
It may have been an oversight because most of those are fairly balanced already, like the uniques with the vowels. So you're right. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they pull a 180 because I think it could have just been an oversight. Either way, I don't think it's the biggest deal. Like Paradoxica Savior combo, yeah, it's a no-brainer, and a lot of people use them. But it's pretty rare, so it's already kind of a chase item. And the other thing is it's fucking slow. I don't think it feels good to do something with it. I'd rather craft myself a 2 attack speed foil, and I do every single time, and it still gets you way more than enough damage. So I don't see it as the be-all, end-all item anyway.
Yeah, and it would definitely put, if Paradoxica is getting even further buffed, which I kind of hope it does because I love the idea of like really, really chase items in the game and I want more of them. But it does put a very, very big difference between that and something like Starforge or just Favor. And that's actually one of the things that I was sort of surprised about, that there wasn't going to be a buff to things like Disfavor. One of the things they talked about in the patch notes is in the upcoming Ultimatum League, they're adding something called a Vowel Reliquary Key, which is a special like unique box map that you can go in, click on a strongbox, and it's going to give you a Vowel item in this case. Some people think that this is going to be a legacy item. It is not. It is just going to be something that is a Vowel item. So, for example, Disfavor, and it is going to be foiled, which is similar to like the foil in like a card game, that it's sort of glowing. But now that they aren't changing a lot of the Vol items, there aren't really that many items, in my opinion, that I would be excited for. And I wondered if you guys felt the same way about these.
I
Yeah.
thought originally, because they said, this is kind of what baited me. They said it was going to be the rarest reliquary key yet, right? So I thought legacy, right? Because
Yeah.
that's why it would be so
Mm.
rare. But apparently it's not. So I mean, I'd still be excited to get like acuities or something. Like that would be nuts, assuming that's possible.
Would it though?
I mean,
Is Acuity that good now?
Yeah, we're still talking current nerfed
Yeah.
abilities, right?
I mean, I'd still wouldn't mind that. It's still like I mean, what else would there be, right? I mean,
So the things.
Nothing. That's his point.
Yeah,
It's still kind of
exactly.
lackluster.
Yeah.
There's the shield, like the Aziri
shield,
shield
yeah.
that drops like fully finished. That's cool. And there's I actually really do like the amulet from the incursion temple. That is actually pretty cool. Albeit like it is a pretty like hard thing to make a build around because it ends up being kind of clunky. But Vol skills are getting buffed too. But other than that, I don't know. I feel like it was a little bit weird to call it like the rarest and most exciting reliquary key, I guess.
True.
I can't think of any, like, besides those two.
No, it definitely wasn't a drawing point for me when he like brought those up. I had a quick think and I was like, I don't see how that really matters. Like, and especially since it's rarer anyway, it's not something you care too much about. Yeah, it'll be something fun to open and get some crap out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing I
this
can think
goes back to like Chris's Magic the Gathering hype, right? I mean, that's the foil part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like they really want that to be exciting for some reason, but
Yeah.
I think in temporary leagues, collecting these items is not as it's not much of a goal, so it's kind of like it kind of falls flat a bit.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
I mean, I think in general, collecting them, it's just the fact that it's like foil or some shit doesn't really mean anything to this game or to something like this. If you want it to be cool, it needs to have like an alternate art or some shit so that when you put it on, then it looks fucking sick. Then I might be interested in collecting it and be like, yes, that's a chase item. Just the fact that it's a little bit shiny on the picture doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like it is, like people are pointing out, Val themed, so it's kind of hard to like realize exactly what's going to be in there. But yeah, there's at least at face value, not anything crazy that I'm very excited about. However, that being said, I do love the idea of reliquary keys, something that is like very, very rare and can drop powerful and rare items. It doesn't even necessarily have to be legacy. But, I think the key idea and, like, opening that strongbox is very cool.
Yep.
Mhm.
Nothing to add there. It's just yeah. It's a shame it's going to be rare, and it's probably a shame that there's not going to be anything too useful in it. But maybe it'll happen. Maybe we're not thinking hard enough about it or overlooking a few things.
Yeah, and yeah, I at least, being legacy as well might be a little bit too strong. So, it's a hard balance
Well,
to hit there.
definitely, yeah. That said, I think I had this conversation with my chat at the time when it was first like kind of announced that I don't even think legacy like acuities would be that strong in today's world because more often than not you're just like dying to a big one shot anyway. It's not the same like environment anymore of like where a bit of insta leech would be that overpowered. It
Yeah.
still would be, but I don't think it's as overpowered as it was back then.
That is a very good point, and we can start discussing a little bit about the patch notes. Unless, is there anything specific to Ultimatum League else that we should talk about, or anything particularly about Ultimatum League you guys are excited about?
Mm, finding out what the big encounter is, I guess, and if there's any
True.
fat loot from that
We
too.
could speculate a little on that. Do you think that is going to be something that unlocks when you've done like, I don't know, like 10 of the fights in a tier 16?
I mean, I have no idea. Maybe
I
it's
mean,
after doing one of the special maps or something,
I
completing it.
mean, I'm thinking it'd probably be like the blueprints in Heist, right? So you'll just drop them essentially, and it'll be unique. That would be my guess.
Yeah,
So
okay.
like a unique one of those itemized whatever they're called. What are they called again? The
Blueprints?
The
ultimatum blueprint thingies, whatever they're called.
inscribed. I don't remember
I can't
exactly what it
remember the
was. I don't know.
exact name
Yeah.
of it.
But yeah, I'm imagining a unique one of those. That would be my guess
Oh,
anyway.
inscription. Right.
Inscriptions.
That makes
Okay.
sense. Maybe they have like a percentage chance to drop when you do like the 10. I'm so curious as to like how rewarding. Can you imagine like, your maybe it's only like tier 14 to 6 maps you can get to go all the way up to like 10, right? And you have like a really tanky build. You're finally invested enough and you're like, okay, I like level 9 was really hard. We're going to go all the way to level 10, and it goes like 3 orbs of scouring is your reward. If you can do this, it's going to be great.
I'm sure it'll be better than that for the most part. I think what's going to really suck is if you like get to the 9th wave or something, and then your last wave, it's like, oh, you can pick between these 3 ass fuckings, like because some of those mods are going to be just awful, and then you go, well,
Yeah,
you might
it
not
it is
do
really,
it.
really cool that we do have a little bit of a choice, because obviously in Delirium with some Elocrims, there are some times where I've not had like a Delirium unique yet, so I know that if I am able to do level 20, I will get at least a Delirium unique, which could be a Voices. But it's like I'm looking through the list and it's like critical, 3 additional projectiles, minus max resists, and like 100 fucking million extra damage. I'm like, awesome. There's a 0% chance of survival for me here. So at least we have some choice now. Which I think is
And
a
that's still
good.
the exciting part on hardcore, right? Like that's exactly what he's talking about, the risk versus reward. You know you're going to be risking something, and then all of a sudden you're way more clenched up for this entire encounter. And if you get through it, then it's all that more exciting. And if you don't, well,
And get to play a new
have another
build.
24-hour streams is.
Yeah, no, hopefully there'll be a lot of those. It's definitely something I look forward to every time. Um how does your like, do you do a lot to like prepare for a new league start, or what does like the days before the league starts look like for you, Methil?
They're pretty routine at this point for every league because it's almost the same. They've got their exact schedule, and we basically do the whatever we need to do around our exact schedule. So, I've got the drunk Patchnotes midweek every single time, and that sucks up like that entire night, and then the next day for recovery usually. And then it's just planning freaking cosplay and stuff, because usually it's just a lot to think about. Like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pull off that? And constantly just kind of stressed out about that. So in general, I think I don't have that much I actually need to do, but I always feel this extra weight of like just constant nagging feeling in the back of my head of how I'm going to pull some things off. Otherwise, yeah, I'll do a couple of streams throughout the week and talk a bit about builds and a few of the announcements and stuff. And then the leading up day. So today, for example, I'll log on, do a little bit of a stream, just talk a bit about builds, then start trying to plan my own starters, and then spend the entire day like running around trying to finalize cosplay stuff usually. And then go late into the night making it, and then get like 2 hours sleep and get going.
Wow. And is there a cosplay prepared for this league?
There's something kind of happening. I wouldn't call it prepared, but it's being prepared. Like, it's gonna, I think, possibly be the most scuffed thing I've done thus far. And yeah, I'm pretty scared about the outcome so far.
All right, that's a
I have
good teaser. I'm looking forward to it.
I have a
Mhm.
question, Mathil. So how did
Mhm.
you set up the webcam for the hot tub cosplay? Like, how did you get that going? Like,
That's you're not supposed to say anything yet, but no,
I
that
think
would
that
be
would break
good.
Twitch.
Nah, it wouldn't. Someone's already done it, and there's been plenty of meme about it. I don't think the technology's there yet in my current situation. I don't think you can bust out a hot tub in my little apartment or anything. So that's why I'm like, telling Quinn that he's got to do one for his cuck shed, and then we'll just come over and just be a couple of bros chilling.
That would definitely break Twitch. Um, and Steelmage, what about you? How do the days looking up to a new league look?
oh god. So I'm actually on like your schedule, like Belfast schedule, basically. So I wake
Nice.
up early in the morning, Belfast time, right? Which just so happens to be god awful for every league start, right? Because what that means is, the league starts at 6 a.m. my time. I wake up at like 4 to 5 p.m. So I have to flip it almost 12 hours, right? I have to do like a complete 180. So I have to make a decision every league, right? Whether or not I'm going to stream at my normal time and chill with chat, have a good time, talk builds, do theory crafting, or try hard my schedule and flip it and then kind of not stream because I'm like dying, like trying to flip it, like, you know what I mean? So this time around, I just streamed, right? So what that means is right now for this podcast, I slept like 2 hours or something,
Wow. You
right?
look really awake. You look more more awake than I am in like 9 hours.
Well, I think it was basically a nap. Like sometimes that works.
True.
Like sometimes the nap works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it worked. So I think we'll be all right. But yeah, so that's always fun having to like flip the schedule. I also panicked a little bit when I realized there was 2 days to the league because I'm used to like the schedule where they have like, was it like 3 weeks normally before?
Mhm.
So they
Yeah.
announce the league, then there's like a couple weeks, few weeks. This time around, the way they're doing it, they just announce it and then like it feels like a week goes by so quick and then the league starts, right? So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I kind of agree. I feel like Ritual, at least for me, went incredibly fast. And it honestly felt like a 2 month league to me. I wasn't really ready for it. And what about at League Start Steelmage? Like what's your schedule and what's your plan for League Start?
Oh, I mean, I just like get a diaper and play the game as much as possible.
Do you have any particular
Got
goals or
your
anything?
poop sock on standby, and
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I mean, I just make sure I don't have to eat. Like, I don't have to spend time eating, right? I like try to like, not have to like spend time
Yeah, that's not
eating like
important.
meals and yeah. It's just it's just fuel, right? So yeah, I just basically focus on playing the game as much as possible in that first week because that's how I really enjoy PoE, right? Just just playing the game, super try hard, trying to be like as far progressed as possible, right? So that's how I like to enjoy league stats.
And you are planning on going trade league. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and your plans?
Right. So obviously, last couple of years since SSF's become a thing, I've been playing SSF like nonstop. Like I love playing SSF, right? And then obviously the events that you've been doing, like the Awakener events, the Maven events, and obviously things like Gauntlet as well, have all been like SSF, right? So hardcore trade has not been a thing for me, at least, for a long time now. And so this time around, now that there's no official event, there's no like actual event happening. There's still like the league starts, right, which I love. But this time around, I was thinking of playing hardcore trade. So I've decided to commit to hardcore trade, and I guess just see what happens. And maybe there's a few people that join me, it'll be fun. Just for something different, because it has been literal years since I've spoken to another person in the video game. You know.
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna be doing the same. So it'll be interesting. In worst case scenario, if I don't love playing on Trade League, I can always roll SSF later. So I'll be joining you on that.
Yeah,
Are
it should be
you
fun.
are you not concerned you're gonna pull less chicks out at the bar if you don't introduce yourself as hardcore solo self-found and instead, as trade? Because that's something you got to think about, dude.
So Helena, I've got a little bit of an announcement. No, yeah, I think that'll be fine.
And she's gone.
Oh my god, maybe I'll lose my girlfriend. No, it'll be fine, I think. I really do enjoy Trade League. Some of the things that sort of like pushed me away from it a little bit is everything being kind of achievable from one mechanic. Um and I feel like, at least for me, like there hasn't been in the past 2 or 3 leagues that many like drops that are exciting when you play as many hours as I do. Like even finding like the past few leagues, I remember looking up when I found an SSF like an Impulsa, and I was really excited, right? Because I had gone even 2 leagues without finding an Impulsa. Finally finding one and seeing that, oh, it's 10 kills, awesome. Whereas on SSF, obviously that's like an exciting chase item. But I feel like some of the changes they made with obviously like things like Headhunter, Badge of the Brotherhood being droppable anywhere, and that you do now have to focus more on the mechanic itself. For example, golden oils might only be accessible from 13 to 16 blights now instead of doing delirium or heist. I think that's like part of the reason why I really want to go back to trying Trade League again.
Yeah, some of the new inscriptions as well are
Mhm.
like have the specific item that you're totally not going to have on SSF.
Yeah,
So that's kind of as well a little. Maybe there's a little bit of a reason there as well to play trade.
yeah, exactly. So it'll be fun. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it
Um,
should be good.
and Matthew, what about you? You usually play Trade League. Do you ever like? Have you ever considered doing like either hardcore or softcore solo self fed?
Um, just as an SSF question, I mean, I have fun with SSF during like the little gauntlets and stuff that you put on,
Mhm.
or just specific events that pop up. I have fun with it. I think it's a very short-term fun thing for me
Mhm.
because overall I like to make lots of builds and I like to do lots of different things, and I really don't like being gated by what I have on the long term. So when it's really fun for like a week or two where you're like, oh shit, I desperately need this item, and then it drops, and you get super excited, and you can build around certain things that you find, and then it really, shifts your focus on what you can do and what you can't do, and kind of directs the way you're going to make a few builds. And after a few weeks, then I'm just like, yeah, no, I want my choice back, and I
Yeah.
definitely want to be able to go grab a pair of boots that have 2 resists that I specifically need or some shit, and it's easy. Because it's more about that for me, being able to play a lot of different builds and try a lot of different things rather than just the pure struggle of trying to get it all off the ground manually. So
Yeah.
no, for SSF, it's not something I want to do for a long time. I'm happy to leave it as like little short-term events.
That's fair. And you do a large amount of builds per league. Just on a like average, how many builds do you do per league? Because you put out so many videos and stuff. So
These days, it's about 18 to 20 or so every league. Different ones usually. They sometimes are a rehash of like some previous builds, but always with a different concept or different highlight around it. But it's usually about 20 these days. Like I can remember a few years back, it was usually about 8 to 10 or something. But then I don't know. There's just so much more to be able to do and like get into these days that 20 is like pretty easy. Like usually at the end of the league, I still have 3 or 4 that I haven't ticked off ideas that I wanted to get to. So I
That's
don't
a
know.
good feeling, though.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I might be like not done, but kind of over the league at that point. It's like I can hardly give a shit about farming more rituals and getting to the end game and playing again all over, the same routine. But I still want to have a few of those builds I want to do.
Yeah.
And I just don't get to them. There's no
And
time.
do you ever, like, whenever you do switch builds and stuff, do you ever bounce between builds and stuff? Because obviously on hardcore, I'll end up having like one boss killer, one mapper, etc. Or do you usually end up like selling the gear when you're done with it?
I mean, a lot of the time I won't sell it. It'll just sit there doing nothing because I
Mhm.
don't need to sell it. Like I've got plenty of money. Otherwise, I always have the idea of it. Like, oh, I'll come back to that later, or maybe play it a bit more another time. But it never happens. As soon as I start a new character, that's the entire focus for the streams or for the just week or the character, and I forget entirely about that previous character, and I can't be bothered playing it anymore. So in theory, yeah, I'd love to, but it just never works out that way.
Nice. Well, this seems like a good time to move into Patchnotes and talk about all the changes there, and there were some juicy ones. Um, one of the main things I really want to talk about was there anything in particular that you were surprised wasn't there, Steelmage?
uh, well, I mean, buffs. Yeah, I mean, a few people molded a bit than buffs, but I mean, they did a lot. The patch notes were massive. They were massive. But I mean, it would have been nice to see a few more buffs. But I mean, I guess we're always going to mold about the skill that I wanted to play didn't get buffed, or the skill that I was going to play got nerfed, or whatever. So it's fine.
Hmm.
And I mean, I do get excited by nerfs. I do believe in them nerfing things buffs the relative power level of the other builds, right? So even though it's not as exciting, they have buffed the shittier skills just by nerfing the good ones. I do believe in that, like addition by subtraction kind of thing. So
Yeah. And what about, like, I think at least for me, one of the things that was the most surprised was Fortify not getting nerfed. And that creating a very
not
large,
nerfed.
yeah, that creating a very large disparity and in defenses available. How do you feel about that?
I think the vigilant strike nerf, specifically the vigil, is a big deal to me. Um, Pretty much every build I play in hardcore has fortify. Like I cannot. I really hate playing builds without fortify. And the vigil nerf is basically removing that option of fortify. Not removing it, but
You
like
do still get a 20-second Fortify.
right. So I wanted to talk. Well, so does the vigil replace the base duration of the fortify, or does it add to it? Because if it adds to it, then it's fine, right? No drama. But I thought it replaced it, and the reason to run the vigil is it's a party thing. It applies the fortify to everyone in the group, right?
I guess that's something we're gonna have to wait and see. But I mean,
Right.
so when I was looking at Fortify and stuff, I was thinking like until reading the vigil, I was like, okay, well, even if it lasts 12 seconds, I'm probably gonna use it.
Well, it seems like it lasts like what is it, 10 or something? What did they? What was the
No,
base
but there's
duration?
quality too, right?
8.
Yeah.
No, it was 8
Oh,
actually. I
right.
think it was 8. So if it replaces, well, you just wouldn't use the vigil, but then you can't do the general's cry thing. So you'd need to use vigilant strike, which means you need to go back to whack. You can't use the general's cry vigilant strike thing. You just got to whack a mob, which is awful, and it only lasts 13 seconds. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it'll be interesting for sure. But like either way, like you pointed out, the vigil nerf obviously is mostly focused around like nerfing it for spellcasters and Fortify having easier access to spellcasters. But Champion has no such problem because Champion always has Fortify, and that's sort of what I mean with the surprising like way they did Fortify. Because now I feel like for a lot of things, especially on hardcore, we don't really have any other defense options. I would already say that like the hybrid stuff you could do with Glorious Vanity and Soul Tether was already weaker than Fortify, and that actually got nerfed.
yeah.
First of all, what's a defense? Second of all, what's your solution then? Would you have wanted them to actually like tone down Fortify in some way, like just the
Yeah.
numbers behind it, or is there a certain cap on how strong you can make it, or do you want more like options? Just because obviously just nerfing Fortify is one thing, but you said you need alternatives for defense. Would you like them to buff some other shit or what?
So there are loads of options there. I don't like it when there is one thing that is so far ahead of others that you feel stupid for not using it. So for example,
Not getting hit is way ahead of everything else,
that
and
is
that's the
actually
one you
true.
could probably feel stupid not using ahead of the others.
That is probably very true. But I don't know. I would say like the old glorious vanity corrupted soul, or sorry, the old glorious vanity. What is Sabakwa? What's the thing? I can't remember. I only remember Zibakwa, but basically the one that used to give plus 10 kills, which now gives
Div-
5. That's
Mm.
Divine Flesh.
probably oh yeah, Divine Flesh. I'd say original Divine Flesh is probably around the same power as Fortify. And I would also say Transcendence is maybe very, very similar strength as Fortify, but there is a very, very large investment in Transcendence compared to Fortify. And Fortify starts very early, whereas Transcendence is like, okay, I'm usable and strong now. So I don't really mind which one, either buffing alternatives or nerfing Fortify to be more in line. The only thing I don't like is when one is clearly so ahead. That's my only problem.
Yeah, sure, I agree.
Um that's honestly like the main thing I was very, very surprised. I think the when I opened the patch notes, the two things I searched for was like Fortify and I searched for Essence Drain, and I was very surprised to not see Essence Drain mentioned in the patch notes as well. Because it's just been so many leagues in a row. I don't necessarily know that if it needs to be nerfed, it's not like it's like
No, if you, it's not like super overpowered or anything. Like it's a nice starter or something, right? And it clears well enough. But like if you toned it down in some way, it'd just be shit. So why would anyone ever do it?
yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really, really good at one thing, and you could argue it got nerfed for SC because obviously me and Ziz are probably unaware, but there's this whole thing with spell bows that's really popular. It's really popular that we never do because of Fortify, right?
You can cast
Pretty
So
sure
spells
this,
with
Ziz is aware.
bows?
I reckon he found a bow one day.
True. I did find a
true.
bow.
And he died. I remember.
Mhm.
So never again.
Never again. It's not hard revival. Yeah, that was crazy actually that I actually found that during the gauntlet.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was extremely lucky.
Did you
Like
guys get
I've
any?
yet to see one of those.
Oh. What about you still? Oh, you got one, right? On a two-hander or something?
On a Karui mall, and it was
Oh,
very questionable. It was very questionable.
Ah. Oh, actually, how do you guys feel about the implementation of Ritual? Because Ritual is growing core, if I believe 8% per map.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about like when they do implement a mechanic like that? Like just throw I feel like personally it's a little bit lazy, just like, hey, 8%, here you go.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the mechanic. It's just, I guess, convenient for them that most mechanics can be thrown in at a 8-10% chance and seen every so often, and it works that way, and it's completely fine. Sure, there could be better ways, I suppose, at this point, or at least different ones, since it's been like, I don't know, fucking 12 leagues or something, where they just slap in that extra thing afterwards. I think that's fine though. That said, for Ritual, 8 to 10%. Like I said, I think it's a bit overwhelming, especially by the end of Ritual. Seeing them like 3 or 4 times throughout a map, you'd be kind of sick of them most of the time. And at the moment, they are still fairly rewarding. They are still worth doing. And seeing it, 1 in every 10 maps or something, I think it's going to make it a bit more special and worth like going, oh shit, Ritual, I should do that. Good chunk of mobs, maybe some good items, and just the deferrals, I think, needed to be guaranteed because I think they just said there's a higher chance for your deferrals to pop up again. I think they should have been just locked in so you get to see a deferral every time.
Yeah, I agree with that because that would have made a very, very reasonable use for the what do you call the things you put in? Um
Blood vessels.
yeah, that would made like, oh okay, I just deferred like an expensive item. Now I'm gonna juice the next one with blood vessels so that I can actually buy it. That would have been a really, really good thing there, I think.
Well, the really big problem with those, especially now, is the deferrals were always character bound. So your next character wouldn't see the previous character's deferrals. And if you see it one in 10 maps, for example, uh, it's going to feel so shit. Like, let's say you find 3 exalts or something and you defer it, and your character's level 96, and you're like looking forward to making your next character, and you go, shit, I can't. I have to play another 2,000 maps to make sure I get this. Like, that's going to feel pretty awful.
That's true. Now with it going core, do you think deferral should be account wide?
Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense as well, for sure. I mean, I don't think that's something they're going to do, but either that or just make them guaranteed. But yeah, it's going to feel bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it almost feels unintended because I remember the amount of people saying, "Help! I haven't seen this item in forever. Like I had it weeks ago and I've never found it again. Like what's going on?" And it turns out they re-rolled, right? It almost doesn't even feel like
Oh,
it
yeah.
should be character specific.
Yeah. True. And
Well, I
it
never thought it was to begin with, but then when I learned that, I was like, oh shit. And now I've got to like pump out a whole bunch more on this one character. Because I usually like
Yeah.
roll a new one after like 24 to 30 hours on one. And then all of a sudden I'm playing extra hours that were completely unintended.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. Like it is sort of like just punishing the player with it doesn't really like there doesn't really seem to be a reason to punish the player in that way unless there's like a maybe it's really really hard for some reason like on the back end, which I wouldn't know about, but
Well, they said they did it this way, but the deferral system because it's balanced around it. But I don't think it would be. I don't think it breaks the game if it's like more likely, like really, not guaranteed, but necessarily. But I think it's crazy how rare it is to see the item that you've deferred,
yeah.
right?
Well, to be fair, they did say that it was going to be more likely, so it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see just how likely it is, and
Right.
maybe that is something they are open to changing if people hate it.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like Ritual was for me like really really exciting. Not just like the expansion, but like especially rituals themselves. But mostly for my first character. I would think I would go as far as say it's my favorite league ever for my first character. Like it just felt incredibly really really good all the way until like maybe 14, 15 maps. And that was mostly because it like slows you down, so you do end up finding less of things like harvest and stuff. Um, but I wouldn't even have minded if they made Ritual like a campaign only mechanic. That it's a way for you to like help get some extra gear and things during the campaign.
Yeah. I really liked it as a first character thing as well. I thought it just helped you start out so comfortably. Just like having that little shop and purchasing a few, you might need just one alchemy orb or something, and you have the chance to purchase that, or maybe
Yeah.
there's a specific unique or some shit. It was a really good system for early leveling. The absolute worst of it was in Gauntlet. I fucking hated Ritual in Gauntlet because it just locks you into this little section, and all of a sudden you have the most insane shit going on in there. And I just felt so stressed during every single ritual during that event that it made me hate the mechanic on that.
That's fair. I remember especially every time I misclicked one of the chaos ones while running around with 100 minus chaos rest, I was like, look out. So it's like very, very like I just yeah, I misclicked it several times. I was like, nope, not doing the chaos one because that is a one shot. Um
Yeah, that's the one I died on. Not strictly to the chaos, but because I was trying to avoid the chaos so much that I put myself in compromisable situations. But yeah, it just felt awful on Gauntlet.
Yeah. And like you pointed out too, just being able to pick up an alchemy or something, I would say ritual is probably maybe delirium was this good too, but I felt like very few mechanics feel really good like your first 10 levels. Whereas ritual was actually like pretty decently balanced in that you weren't really getting overwhelmed early on. And getting something like 5, 6, 7 transmutes early on is like huge. That feels like incredibly rewarding in the first 10 minutes. So that was really cool to see, and I wonder how the the new league is gonna be there with like you click it, you go to the next level, and you just die.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to cause a few of those, but for the most part, the risk is fairly judgeable, right? Like you know what the previous level felt like, and you know what the mod's going to do, and just how bad it's going to be. Unless there's some specific new mobs that pop up on the next level that you haven't encountered. which could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
I
looking
remember
forward
the
to
way
it.
they used to balance leagues, right? When this is ancient history now, but they used to split the leagues, and they had a funny way of doing risk reward. So on SC, it's kind of a mixed bag what league what league SC and HC got, right? But I'll never forget an ambush. It was you had this box, open mobs, there were different rippy mods on the boxes, and then loot came out. It was a really good league. It was a big hit. Right, a
Mhm.
decent balance of risk reward, right?
Mhm.
Then flip that over to hardcore, and they had this mentality of you're playing hardcore, right? So you think you're the shit. Okay, okay, okay. You get this challenging league that has no loot that just kills you randomly, and you don't get to. It's just randomly there, and they'll off screen you instantly. So they've come a long way with risk reward and combining the leagues and making them So it'll be interesting to see. My only worry, I mean, my only worry is like, well, remember Delirium, right? The numbers on the first week. I mean, people obviously exaggerated how bad it was, right? People like molded, but they were questionable the difficulty to the rewards. So I wonder if it'll land right the balance. It'll
Mhm.
be interesting.
Yeah,
Seems unlikely. I mean, when does it ever these days? But
Yeah.
it'll be sussed out in the first week or two, and there'll be some changes. Plenty of you guys will die, and give us reason to avoid certain things, and reason to nerf certain things. But that's what you're there for, my guinea pig friends.
true,
True.
true. And continuing to speak about the patch notes, how do you guys feel about the allies cannot die change?
Oh no.
I mean, I don't know. I don't see it as that big of an issue right now. Anyway, it's pretty rare
True.
that it's a huge roadblock, whether you come across something that is super annoying like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm wondering how it's
yeah,
gonna be because obviously we can't leech from those monsters and stuff. And I feel like divine shrines probably do take out a good amount of people in hardcore, like trying to click the divine shrine. So it's gonna be interesting if it's better or worse.
Yeah.
yeah, hard to say.
Depending on the uptime of the buff, right? Because it's basically like a divine shrine, right?
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those are really scary. Those are
Yeah.
really scary, and they'll just randomly prop up. I do think it's good because obviously the performance with allies cannot die can be a huge problem sometimes.
Yeah.
So it'll
I
be
think
better
so
on
too.
that front. Yeah, it'll be better on that front, but it'll be interesting to see because obviously the new petrified blood mechanic relies on you having reliable leech, right? Like that's how people are going to mitigate the dot, right? The degen component.
Yeah, that could actually that's a good point. That could be like a really, really easy way. Like say you have like maybe high cast speed, you get up to it and you don't realize you're not leeching and you just end up killing your character on it.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe the duration of the buff's only like 2 seconds and it's fine.
True.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be that long. Much longer or much worse. But that does also remind me. Didn't they remove the reflect from the situational?
Yeah.
Reflect from the lieutenant dude and the bull dude. Is that something you
That was
guys are excited about for HC?
Okay, yes and no. It is probably a good thing, but I absolutely love watching whenever a streamer runs into it for the first time. And it's like a rite of passage that you get clipped on it by at least one character. So I'm kind of half and half, right? It's so fun, dude. People just going like, "What killed me?" It's like, yeah, there you go. That happened to me too. Um, so I don't know. I'm half and half. It's good content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's a little cheap though, isn't it? It's like a gotcha mechanic, right?
Yeah.
It's like you either know or you don't know. So I'm glad it's gone, but I guess I see what you're saying. There'll be those two mechanics reflect in lab and reflect in that one map were like gotcha mechanics that kill people every league, right? So you won't see those anymore in the highlights.
Yeah.
So I guess it is the end of those rip clips, right?
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. It is probably a good thing. And they've slowly reworked a lot of like cheap shots like that. There's not that many really left that I can think of. Revenants are like a little bit brutal, but yeah. I mean they do have like quite a few ways to kill us still. Porcupines are still in. And
Yeah.
that is a very big change actually, talking about porcupines, because obviously explosion chest is nerfed. We don't really know what the new percentages are. Like I wouldn't be too surprised if elevated explosion chest has 100% chance. How do you guys think this is gonna affect everything with the new explosion chest changes?
I mean, I don't know. From my point of view, it shouldn't affect things too much, but maybe I live in a bubble because I so rarely use one. Like I use an explosion chest once or twice a league, and it feels good, but it doesn't at all feel mandatory. You can get around that sort of stuff with plenty of other builds and plenty of other mechanics, or even builds that don't have explosions can still feel really good too. So I don't know how often do you guys use an explosion chest? Is it on every
Every
build or
single
is it?
build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to have some source of explosion. Obviously,
Yeah,
that's why I
some
play
sort of
part of the
explosion, but
reason
I
I
mean
play
the
Glad.
chest specifically.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm playing like a Glad or an Occultist or something like that, I don't necessarily have to have one. But
Trying to
yeah,
think
So
if I had a
your
character
goal is
without
still
one.
to get.
I don't think so. I don't think I had a character without it pretty much.
Jesus Christ.
It's
Well,
just so good. It's
I
too
mean
good.
it is, yeah. But like I said, I don't think it was mandatory. I thought you could get away without them.
Mm, it's pretty big. Like I even on my chaos slinger and my like flame wall and stuff like that, they also used one. To be fair though, it was so accessible in the last league. Whenever they were like rarer, harder to get, or if I would need something like elevated, then obviously it won't use it on everything. But I do think it's gonna make things like Herald of Ice and Impulsa new best friend now with the especially with the Storm's gift gloves.
Hmm. Yeah, Impulsive feels amazing. I like it much more than an explosion chest as well. Just feels cool.
Yeah, the color of the explosion is so cool too. I love that like the blue. It just looks better.
Mm-hmm.
Um and
Yes.
and, in this patch we have new skills as well. Is there any of those that you guys are particularly excited about?
Steel,
yeah.
you can go first.
So right, so when I heard about Petrified Blood, right, I did the math on it. I realized if it's 50% below half life, you effectively have the same life against instant damage. So TLDR, you can go low life, and you're not necessarily squishier. However, the gem reveal yesterday revealed that it's staying at that static 40%. So what this means is you're effectively losing survivability. You're not gaining survivability. So I'm kind of putting it on the back burner. I'm kind of like not as excited anymore. 17%, yeah, 17% EHP against instant damage. So you're actually losing survivability. That being said, there are so many low life mechanics that are really interesting. Painted Human, the new support gem, the overleach mechanic, as you guys were mentioning, as we mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. And then as far as the new skills go, I think they have damage. I don't know if you guys have POB'd it, like seen the damage. They
Alright,
have,
they're good. Leave them alone then. Let's go. They've got damage.
yeah, they got
That's all
damage,
that
but
counts.
right, yeah, the issue that I have with it is actually spending your life is kind of scary.
True.
I
Yeah.
think Ren is it Reap? Sorry, Reap is like what 300 life or something. It depends, obviously, on support gems and everything, but it's like quite a bit of life per cast, right? So I'm
That's
a
why I'm
little.
gonna be slinging it.
Right. I've seen it being triggered, and it actually looks pretty spicy if you trigger it.
What about you,
Jeez.
Mathil? Any excitement or thought about starting with one of the new skills?
Mostly Exsanguinate. Rape looks cool and all, but I don't know. The whole bloody tendril thing has me a bit more excited. And yes, I did look at the life cost as well. I was like, oh shit, that does seem a bit uncomfortable. But I think it probably won't be that bad because it's not like you're running in and, like with Exsanguinate, for example, it's not like you're running in and just fucking spamming that shit, right? And just like chunking life. You're probably going to come in and hit like a pack with it once for the most part, and then move on to the next pack, hit once, maybe twice. So at most, you're chunking away like, 500 life. And that gets, regen pretty quick through your regen, your leech, or your life on kill effect or something. And then if it's built heavily into dot, which it might be, not quite sure how they're built just yet, haven't really played around with them, then at a boss, you like stack up your 3 bleeds or something and then try and maintain them. So it might not be that bad life-wise, but it looks very cool, and that's the one I'm most looking forward to trying. I feel like slinging or like, cast on critting's a bit cheesy for those, at least to begin with, since, you kind of want to self-cast and figure them out. And give them the proper shot they're supposed to have. But by all means, that might be the best way to do that type of stuff in the end.
That's fair. I do think both of the new seal or all the new seals look really cool. Like just I don't know, I think it's a really, really cool addition. So I'm looking forward to it's something I'm potentially league starting with, and we can talk about like starter builds and stuff later. But I do love when they add new skills. And
Mm.
speaking of new skills, they are sort of adding a bunch more skills because of the rework with Val skills, especially some really juicy ones like Val Ice Nova and Val Cold Snap and Val Ground Slam. Val Ground Slam, especially looking like you're just going to be dunking on bosses. Any other new Val skills particularly interesting to you, Methel?
The Val stuff, I mean, as you said, I remember looking at Val last Nova, I was like, Jesus, it didn't need this. It's
Yeah.
already so good. Like, okay. But for those reworks, and it doesn't feel like an additional like skill. It doesn't honestly to me feel like it's anything new or special or super exciting because they're just what we've already played with and well established, but they're a little bit better. Some are quite a bit better, some are a little bit different. So I'm not seeing it through as much of an excitement perspective personally. But yeah, some of those would definitely get a lot better. So the Vile Ground Slam, that is one that I'm not necessarily going, oh shit, I have to build with that because that's going to be so big. But it was a deterrent in the past where I would want to build a Ground Slam character. And then I was like, but Vile Ground Slam, which is your big button to mash, doesn't get affected by slams. I don't want to do that anymore. So it's going to make it, at least an option, an enticing option, I think. Otherwise, yeah, just having a few more uses on a lot of things is going to be cool. So I think Vile Ice Nova had 2 uses and
Yeah.
Vile Blade Vortex has 2 uses. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid change. Hopefully, it's all good enough that we get to press it multiple times during several boss fights, and then it kind of feels like a bit of a different gameplay. But that combined with the way the new chest, or its series, sort of splendid chest things, +1 for the vials, makes it all pretty tempting, pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, it definitely feels a little bit more like an ultimate or something in PoE. So that's cool. I like that. What about you, Steel?
Yeah, I mean, I know I memed earlier about like, where's the buffs at, but if there are any buffs, it's the Val skills, right? They're actually really cool. Like Val Power Siphon, I've always been a fan of that ability. And that got buffed like tons, like the damage on that and the uses. So Val Burning Arrow as well. Some people are talking about maybe not necessarily self-sustain, but extremely high sustain on that using the Val unique jewel that they buffed. I can't remember, Ziri's Rain, I think it's called. So yeah, there's some pretty interesting potential second builds for the reroll, I might look into.
Yeah, no, I personally love Val's heals. So obviously, I used to kind of main Val's heals back when you could have it as a.
Val Spark, dude.
I've done over 38 Valsparkers. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Gee.
no, definitely like exciting for me. Like it's kind of surprising to me too because they went so far away from Val skills. So I'm like surprised that they went back to them. But yeah, personally very excited.
Yeah,
You're right,
GGG's
it's
approach.
surprising.
Yeah, their approach to Valskills is kind of like Scion. They love it, right? They love the idea, but they don't want everyone to use them. So they have this weird, they hit or miss balancing design, right? Where they want people to play Scion, they want people to play Valskills as sort of this advanced sort of like archetype, right? But they don't want it to be like the dominant meta. So they're like very yo-yo balancing when it comes to maybe not so much Ascendant these days, but definitely Val skills have been up and down, up and down, up and down. If you guys remember Legion, Val Ice Nova was like the meta, right? And also Val Blind, there was a bunch of Val skills that were meta, and they deleted that. They
Yep.
like took that out, man.
That
They took that out. So
was fun.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
fun for like a
I think
league.
it's just a fine balance that they're trying to strike, right? And there's a very thin line there. So they're just like, yeah, we want you to use these a lot. And you're like, all right, I'll use it all the time. They go, no, too much. Take, a little bit further back. Just
Yeah,
use it, like let's say 80% of the time as opposed to 100.
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
I do like that they lowered like the cooldown time as well, and that in some cases they wouldn't be affected by duration. So that's I really like that idea. And
Yeah.
obviously, yeah, I would love to be able to main a Val's heal again. I'm always gonna be sad that they removed Val Molten Shell and what they used to be.
I mean, it was pretty disgusting. But wait, are you talking about the recent one or the
No,
really
I'm
old one?
talking about the one where you could run it as a damage build, where you would
Yeah,
self-damage
yeah,
and do the explosion. That was one of my favorite builds in all time of PoE.
yeah. So,
I never got to play it.
Oh,
what
heartbreaking.
a
Um,
zoomer.
I know. Other than that, I want to talk a little bit about the map passives. Is there anything in particular you were surprised about that surprised was changed or surprised not was changed?
Dude, I was so surprised they nerfed Voldo Hobbies. Like, what? Can you believe that? Wow.
God, it seems so balanced.
Yeah.
So the Valda's Harbinger in particular, like any theories on what that king is going to be? Is it going to be the Night King from the Beachhead, or is it just going to be one of the slightly better Harbingers with the crown?
It's a good question,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah, maybe it is just one of those slightly better ones. If it's the actual dude, like the end one of the beachheads, that's just too long. Like, no one can be fucked doing that, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna be there for like a minute and a half just cleaning up one pack at a time. Nah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what that is. And personally, very, very happy that they didn't nerf essences. I love that, like having access to crafting with deafening and shrieking essences without having to like talk to another player or another person. Just amazing.
Yeah. No, I personally didn't really look at the changes too much for those because I just take them as they come, and I'm still happy to kind of play around with lots of different ones in different zones, and it's just depends on what you feel like doing at the time, really. I never
Yeah.
went, okay, Harbingers, that's the best, so I'm doing nothing but Harbingers now. I didn't really actually look at those too closely myself. I'll just, take it as it comes.
Are you attacking me, Mathil?
Always, mate, always.
Nah, but I mean, actually, funnily enough, now that I think about it, the league mechanic rework is actually kind of impactful here, right? Because if you want the top tier essences, you'll want to do the essence node, right, and so on and so forth. So that
Yeah,
actually
I'm
might end
rushing
up
that.
being more. Yeah, that might be more impactful. Just the fact that like certain items from leagues, right, are now specific to that league mechanic. So you'll kind of want to do more passives now. You want to not just do one region, I imagine. So,
Oh yeah.
or maybe I'm wrong, and there'll be one OP region, and everyone will just do the same. Like everyone
I
will do
mean,
how again or something. I don't know.
if history tells us anything, that's still what's going to happen. Yes, there'll be
Yeah,
some best thing, and everyone's going to do that, and then it'll get nerfed next time around.
I'm gonna live in Hayward Hamlet. It's my home now. Well, it was
yeah,
before too, but now it's I know
Yeah, more or less.
yeah.
yeah. Speaking of that, the Atlas shuffle didn't happen.
Yeah.
What do you? That was spicy.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? Like, were you expecting an Atlas Shuffle Method, and do you mind that there isn't one?
No, I wasn't expecting one. I don't think it's too, you know, big a deal at the moment. The Atlas still feels pretty fresh and kind of interesting because of all the little zones and stuff. I'm still not really even used to where everything is at the moment. So I wasn't expecting one, but sure, it would have been welcome to have one. But right now, yeah, I'm still pretty lost in the Atlas personally.
Mm-hmm. Steel?
Yeah, I mean, I realize I'm alone in this opinion, but I kind of like when they keep the Atlas similar for at least a small period of time. So when they change it every single time, it's like, okay, I've got to relearn all the regions and all the everything again. So I don't necessarily mind, but I realize a lot of people really like it because it feels really refreshing and new when you don't know which map is where. But I don't necessarily mind learning the current atlas, figuring it out, and then after like I don't know, X amount of time, then they change it. So I kind of don't mind at all, like at all that they didn't change it. So
Yeah, I'm sort of like I don't really mind either way. Like, there's pros and cons. Like you said, like it's kind of for me exciting if they do, exciting if they don't. If they don't, then I'm like sort of like mastered something and I already know what to do. And if they do, then it's new and exciting. But
yeah,
Path of Exile can already be like very overwhelming for a lot of people. So I can imagine for people that are already maybe struggling with some other mechanics that it's a little overwhelming.
yeah.
Um, Ascendancies did not get like that much of a rework. We had like some changes to Berserker, Elementalist, Gladiator, Pathfinder, and Necro. Were you guys, Mathil, were you expecting a larger Ascendancy rework, or was this pretty much expected?
I mean, I wasn't expecting almost anything this this league. Like, I thought it'd be kind of small, not much is happening because previous one was so big, and then they're still working on a bunch of other shit. So, whatever we're gonna get, I would have been happy with. So I didn't actually think about what might happen. That said, yeah, I'm still always kind of expecting some reshuffle with Scion because it's like still kind of irrelevant a lot of the time and just undesirable a lot of the time. And even this, I guess, seems to have worked out. Just a couple of new skills, and the fact that Sion's got some desirable options there might already bring it forward. So it's not necessarily the actual changes to ascendancies themselves that always matters. It might just be other things around them, like skills that benefit those more, or certain items that might synergize better. So it might have unintended consequences um, just from the rest of the game. But as far as the ascendancy changes, I mean, I think I would have expected more of an elementalist change. I think everyone was like talking about that's probably getting a nerf, but it only got a very small one to the primordial aegis. Um, Probably a bit of more of a reshuffle. Maybe the inquisitor nodes as well
Hmm.
are very powerful, and nothing changed there. Or there could have been more of a change for the fanaticism. It's a bit clumsy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with fanaticism because the other nodes are very, very strong, but fanaticism just like while it is strong while you have it, it's just yeah, like it's clumsy is the best way to like say it. It just kind of like it just feels weird. It just feels strange.
Yeah, it's just hard to kind of make really good use of it on long-term boss fights a lot of the time. For general mapping and stuff, like I tried to build into it where you felt good without it as well. So you have to get like
Yeah.
a certain level of cast speed and area and damage and everything so that it doesn't matter if it's up or not. And for mapping, for the most part, it was fine. You'd have it up like half the time and you didn't care if it was down. But for actual boss fights where it felt really impactful to have, like getting it up was, yeah, not, I didn't want to start that way. Getting it up was not easy, you know? As an elderly man, it just keeps getting harder, but not in the good way.
And what about you, Steel? Were you surprised at the lack of ascendancy changes, or were you surprised by the gladiator changes? And especially, I know you love bleed. Bleed got a bit of a hit.
Oh god, I don't want to talk about Bleed. Um, Although I heard Crip is still playing Bleed. So I mean, I think what people are doing with Bleed now, I mean, this is kind of unrelated to the ascendancy changes, but what people are doing with Bleed is they're just going to abuse Ensnaring Arrow because it makes the damage so high anyway. So I think Bleed will be fine for the record.
Sure.
Just means my specific variant with Crimson Dance is like hard capped now. It's like, but well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we should mention. I mean, do you want to talk about Defy Pain, the
Yeah.
Berserker
Yeah. I
node?
think it's important to
Like,
talk about.
so if you don't know, chat, it's this new node. It replaces Pain Reaver, which was a little bit clunky to proc. You had to take a Savage hit, which was it's a little bit weird. Makes sense thematically though, so everybody got it, but they've replaced that. They've reworked it into Defy Pain, right? Now it's more reliable. The buff, right? The uptime on the leech mechanic, and they give you a stacking armor buff, which is also cool. But then it also has this weird reflect mechanic, which, to be fair, I mean that'll be fine. You'll just mitigate that with reflect immunity or something. But it's
What
really
word is that? What are you saying?
reflect.
Wait, I see your mouth moving, but there's no weird. I don't know.
Yeah, Siri still has it.
I just thought you were making fun of the can't read reflect. It's all good.
Right.
Oh, that's what it is. Dude, I'm not that into that meme that,
That's fair.
you
That's
can't read or
fair.
anything, but it's, I see it everywhere. I just don't associate you with not being able to read like everyone else does.
That's fair. Thank
So
you. I
that's
think.
to your credit.
Yeah, I'll
For
take
the
it.
record, Ziz can read very well. It's just he's reading chat. That's the problem, right?
True.
True.
Actually, true.
Yeah.
Can't resist them memes.
But yeah,
Uh,
like, yeah. Do you think people are gonna take Defy Pain or even play Berserker a lot still?
Oh, Berserk is great, right? I
Yeah.
mean, especially with Chainbreaker. I had Lighty talking about it. So Chainbreaker obviously got reworked. We'll use rebalanced, right? We'll use the GGG terminology, rebalanced. Um, and so if you want like really good Berserk uptime now, a lot of people are looking towards Berserker, right? With the I can't remember the Warcry node now. Warbringer, right?
Mhm.
So people looking towards Warbringer. So Berserker kind of got a buff just by nerfing Chainbreaker. Sorry, rebalancing Chainbreaker. But yeah, I don't know about Defy Pain. I mean, I'm a bit of a two-header, you know. Mathil plays 20 builds a league. I play one build for like 3 leagues. So
You're really good at that one build, right?
yeah, bleed, which got nerfed. Ah, but
So you got no builds that you're good at anymore. Damn.
savage. But anyway, yeah, Defy Pain is a weird one. I don't know. I'll wait for like someone smarter like Mathil to figure out what to do with that. Maybe there's some like cast damage taken shenanigans or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting. There is a lot of other changes as well. I actually do want to talk about some of the item balance as well. Orb of Binding is now a core drop pool right now. Personally, I really wish that literally like killing Vowel Oversoul gave you Orb of Binding. But I think it's gonna be pretty big, especially for new players struggling with like socket pressure early. That you can at least drop this now. I can't remember. Did they say like how early it could drop?
As far as I'm
Mm,
aware, no.
I assume everywhere. It's just probably a thing that could always happen, right?
Well, the currency is limited by level. Like
Yeah,
I can't remember what
Yeah.
level you can drop a mirror, but it's like level 30 or 40 or something. So
18 or 31 or something. It's like
oh
there
yeah.
around.
So I don't.
Um,
I wonder what level it'll be because if it's too high level, it's kind of like it's like why? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
So
I really think there would be a lot of value into like guaranteeing one from Wild Over Soul. Like obviously, like the first like 2 or 3 acts, like hooking a player early is good.
It's
I
probably
keep
just good as
forgetting.
a quest reward then, if that's what you mean. And yeah, I think
Yeah,
that'd be a good idea too.
Yeah, I keep forgetting they're buffing act bosses now. That's gonna be so
true.
cool when we kill like Mervale and Val and it actually drops loot. Because I mean, it already drops loot, but yeah, day one at the time they do drop a fair bit of loot. But in
Mhm.
theory, they're gonna drop like maybe even uniques now. I don't know. I wonder. Like,
Yeah, I think that's really, really exciting. Like, for those that are maybe like a little bit newer to Path of Exile, back in the day, Piety actually used to be the end boss in Act 3. And it was very, very common to farm Piety. And then later when Dominus got introduced, it was kind of dangerous for especially on hardcore, and you would end up not farming it unless you had a very strong character. But Dominus used to be like one of the main things to farm as well. So it will be interesting if they buff them enough that people are actually farming it.
yeah, I mean,
That'd be weird.
maybe people do like Mervale farming for Tabby or something. You know, who knows? I mean,
True.
who knows?
What were you gonna say, Methel?
So that'd be weird. Like I can't see a world in which that happens um, as an actual alternative. Because none of those bosses are particularly like speed runnable that I could really think of, or what would they at best case drop anyway? Just a few of the uniques that are now from the old league put in. So you might be chasing a Badger Brotherhood or a Headhunter or something. But like I just don't see a reason that you would
Yeah.
do that over focusing your efforts elsewhere when you
Yeah,
can
I
with
think
the
you're
right
right.
resources.
I think you're right, but it would be cool if they are able to do that. I think the most farmable is probably Act 8, I would say.
Yeah.
Obviously
Oh
that is
yeah,
like very, very
true.
phased, but it's still a fairly fast fight when you have a lot of damage. And that actually might be a decent alternative, especially for us that are going to be pushing hard on the ladder and stuff. Maybe doing a few extra runs of Solaris and Oniris, and getting some gear there before maps could be interesting. And Bridge, like Harbor Bridge, is pretty good to farm as well.
And before
You
it's like
do
2 more rare items or something.
You could have a set route. Just do the Harbour Bridge up to the boss, do the boss, go into Blood Aqueduct, do a full run, come out, start again as your um, bridge thing, and just have a run where you do all of that over and over. So you can be
Dude,
chipping away towards your tabula, but also maybe randomly get some other shit.
like the Alkaiser run, right? But the
Yeah,
Well,
Mathil
that's what I
run.
was saying. It might be the Alkaiser run, but
Uh,
in PoE.
I'm looking forward to it. I think that would be cool. Like always good to have more options within like reason. Um,
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that's like pretty much the main stuff I wanted to talk about with patch notes. Is there anything else with the patch notes that really stood out or you guys want to talk about before we move on to starter builds?
Happy to move on.
All right. Mathil, you are the build master. Do you want to talk a little bit about some recommendations for starter builds for people?
Have I ever mentioned Cyclone Chieftain? I know that my chat is well aware of this, but yeah, that's my main one at this point. It's just so solid. Like I started it last league and recommended it to plenty of people, and it went very well for a lot of people. And I'd probably be recommending it again as one of my main keystone ones. I would try and make like an exsanguinate. I haven't actually played around with the passive tree or the new skills or anything, so I don't yet know. But it might be, yeah, like that. The Cyclone Chieftain, such a well-rounded, strong build that can ramp. So that's probably the main one. And then, I mean, unfortunately, like most league starters are just good for a long time. So like I could still say the same league starter for the past like 4 years, basically, and it gets a bit boring in that regard. So I try myself to always come up with something a bit different, but it's pointless.
That's fair.
And especially when there's like so many people doing these right now, you guys have put some out and everyone else can put some out. So I put a lot less pressure on myself to do that nowadays. And I'll just be like, yeah, look, here's a couple options from me. Pick them if you want. But for the most part, billions of builds out there. So I don't really try and be the starter build guy or the build guy in general anymore. I just, do my own thing. And if people want to consume some content, then they can. But I'm not very fussed about it anymore.
So, are you going to be league starting the chieftain yourself or?
Um, Probably I like to tackle the new stuff most of the time
Mhm.
because it's new. And then if someone else, wants to do it as well, they can have some sort of reference point
Yeah.
as to how I'm succeeding or failing. So I'd probably still be looking at Exsanguinate myself at this stage, but I don't ever definitively say anything until like the last few hours before it starts. So I'll plan some shit out. If it starts just looking awful and I go, oh man, I don't want to do this, then yeah, maybe I could do something like Cycling Shifting again because
Nice.
it was just very well rounded and took me all the way through to end game comfortably, and I'd be happy to do it again.
Nice. Yeah, no, it is chieftain in general is a pretty fun ascendancy right now. And I think I just realized that I'm now betting that your cosplay you're gonna dress up as a tentacle. It's like a
A
large tentacle.
tentacle.
Yeah, tentacle Mathil for League Start.
How do you think I'm pulling that off exactly?
Have you ever
I
played
mean,
a
you
game called Day of the Tentacle?
No.
Ah, well, see, like there, I'll share you some tentacle pictures later. That was a sentence I never thought I would say in my life, but yeah, I'm
Right. So you're betting I walk out as just a huge fucking dildo, and is that just what you're betting, or is that what you're hoping?
A little bit of both, Bethel. A little bit of both. Um, still to move on from the subject. What about your league starters?
Ziz woke up. Yeah, right. So as Mathil said, a lot of league starters are, they're the obvious pick, and I kind of lean into that. So obviously, Bladefall, Blade Blast did get nerfed, but it's still a ton of damage. So I'm just thinking I'll just ease into the obvious meta pick of Bladefall, Blade Blast, right? I haven't played it that much,
Mhm.
and I've because normally
Wait,
I'm
wait,
playing Bleed,
assassin
right?
or
So
chieftain?
Inquisitor. So I want it because it's
Oh,
trade. Vulcanus exists, and they didn't
true.
nerf it, and Inquisitor's still nutty. So I was thinking, just buy up a Vulcanus. You want to buy, chat. I'm just saying, get a Vulcanus. Sell me. But yeah, hopefully I can get a Vulcanus
Can't
and
ethical,
pop
dude.
off. Want to buy? You want to buy? But yeah, nah. So basically the Waggle build. Right? I'm just yoinking Waggle's build. So
That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm having a little bit of an internal struggle. I never like fully decide on a build. Um, Currently, I'm leaning towards Gladiator, Spellsinger with Tentacle and Reap. Reap? Wait, what's it called again?
Reap.
Rend. Reap. No, it is Reap.
Rape
Um,
Rend.
Yeah, I always
See?
call it rend for some reason.
I
But
did that too. I did that too.
the
Yeah.
the thing is, I don't know. I do want to make a guide on it, and I feel like sometimes I've made guides for new skills in the past, like Crackling Lands, and it hasn't always been the best. But I think if I'm like directly playing it too, it's gonna be like even easier to fix all the problems on the fly.
It'll be
Well,
a
that's
puzzle
what I
to
do
solve. Yeah.
usually. If
Yeah,
I'm gonna do like a new like I'll put out some things that I'm pretty confident in, and then if I put out a new skill, I'll be like, I'm gonna play it as well, so you can like follow my progress and stuff, and you can see how it goes if it's going well, or copy it, or if it sucks, you can abandon it as well. So I'd recommend that. Yeah, if you're ever
yeah,
gonna put out new stuff, you definitely have to be leading the charge on it.
yeah. And I don't know. I haven't fully decided. Like Scion looks kind of spicy in game, but Gladiator as well with like the explosions and everything. Like it's just so good early game. So I do like the idea of starting with that, and then I could always like do a big respec for like boss farming and literally go like champion with like a super meta fortified champion build. Like that's like a really nice thing about being duelist that that's an option. Um, and like
Yeah.
who doesn't love a bit of tentacle?
I'm a big fan if you're gonna try out one of the new skills, having a backup strat.
Yeah. I would say that's
Yeah.
like almost mandatory, and that was very nice with like Cracklands as well. I was like, well, if Cracklands is shit, go Ball Lightning or go Arc, and that's like a very safe option. And same with like when Winter Orb came out, it was like, well, you scale this exactly the same way as Blade Vortex. So I think that is important when doing a new skill because you never know if it's like over or undertuned, and it's very
Yeah.
rarely in between.
Yeah. I mean, I hate, I don't know, I don't like respecking or like pivoting. So for me, a backup plan is always like re-rolling, just starting something else. But if you're
Well, that's
trying
not
to compete and stuff,
necessarily.
then
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
necessarily a bad idea as well, but I would have something to fall back on, even if it is literally a new build, right? I mean, you
true.
said Cyclone Chieftain, right? And it's a really good build. So
Yeah.
Mm,
yeah,
I have thought about like obviously the Blade Blast nerf wasn't very big, so both like Assassin and Chieftain and like you said Inquisitor are all very strong too. And I do love
yeah.
playing Chieftain. But Chieftain for me is a little bit of a risky pick with don't know how like affected Explosion is, and I feel like Explosion is very core to that build. It feels so good when you get it up and
I'm
running.
I'm I'm willing to bet like they just don't want it to be they want it to be less about utility because I think they're still trying to have it be like a source of AoE clear speed. I think they just don't want you to ignore corpse explosion mechanics, which sucks because those are like the ones that everybody hates, right?
mm.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, true. Any other like league starters that stand out to any of you that would be like particularly good to recommend to players?
Mm.
I mean, I've been yoinking. I've been looking at other streamers. As Mathil said, there's a lot of people who have taken up the mantle of making starters, and there's lists. There's big lists. I mean, I could
True.
go over them, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
Tai
like
Tai
Tai
had a
Tai,
nice list.
yeah, and Ventura. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen what Ventura's done?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
So he's got a Discord, right? And in the Discord, he basically what he's done. So it's kind of like a build. Each like thing, each channel is like a guide, right? And so he'll have a VOD where he does like a day one run. So it's like 15 to 20 hours, right? And it's a VOD, so you can actually see the progress. It's not like
Hmm.
it's not clickbaity or anything. You see level 1 to level 90 or more. Or sometimes up to Awakener 5 if
And
you
this
you know
is
if you
the
took it that far.
Ventura.
The Ventura. And it's like all time stamped and everything with leveling progression and how he did it and all that, and his notes and what he thinks about SSF and SSF hardcore. If he died, what did he die to, etc. I just really love the format because it's like a no bullshit format, right?
Yeah, that's really
So
cool.
yeah,
I like that. No,
and
that's
yeah, he's
awesome.
got
Yes,
like
that's what I
yeah.
mean though. If people are gonna like do that, I hardly give a shit about putting out my own starters because it's so worthless. Like someone else is going to go to so much more effort and have so much better information. And so I'd rather just be like, yeah, go look at that guy's thing.
Yeah, no, it is a lot of work with starters and stuff like that. But still, like it is good that a lot of people do like your formats as well and the way you do guides. So it's always worth doing. But yeah,
Hmm.
no, very excited to see how the metas are going to be, and obviously At least if anything else fails, we can always fall back on champion. Um, but like starters aside, I do want to talk a little bit at the end of the podcast about PoE 2 as well. We had more footage in the announcement with they showed a lot of PoE 2. Obviously, it looks very very slow paced, but I think that's like okay, right? They generally always have it look very slow paced in trailers. That's not really
Mhm.
indicative of like any big change or anything like that. But yeah, from the extra footage we received, was there anything that really like stood out to you guys?
Uh, being a Javazon. That's the main thing that stood out to me. Really want to go throw some spears. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah,
Flame bolt.
I was
Ice
literally
bolt.
about to say that.
I mean, that stood out, yeah, as well. I was just like,
Armor piercing bolt.
they can't be serious that this is a good idea. Like, it's been like 30 seconds and I'm already sick of this thing. Surely someone like went over this and went, it's a bit much, but yeah, I think you can tone it down, right? Apparently.
I fully see that if it does release with the even at least the option to do that, like Cute Dog is gonna play with that on 300% volume and a build that specifically swaps every 2 seconds, and his stream is just gonna be like piercing bolt, fiery bolt, piercing, fiery, fiery, fire. It's gonna be a nightmare, and it is totally gonna happen. You can quote me on this in however many years it releases, but it is
Yeah.
100% happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, touching on that is how many of years it releases, right? For me personally, I'm not. I don't. It's hard for me to get as excited about something that's so far away in the future, you know. But I mean, it
Yeah.
does look amazing. But I'm definitely reserving most of my hype for like an actual release date, right? So,
All right. So speaking of Steel prediction, when do you think PoE 2 is going to release?
um, the end of 2022, maybe the end.
Mm-hmm. Mathil?
Probably end of 23.
Ooh. Wow. So I
I don't know. I
actually
mean, they said there's going to be like a beta next year, I think.
yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be done by the end of that, by the end of that year. And they're not going to, I mean, maybe at the start of a year, but otherwise their biggest thing is always going to be at the end of a year. So, you know, it'd either be at the start of 23 or at the end of 23, I'd say.
So I think my prediction would be more similar to Steel's, with maybe like the beta starting in like late 22 and release being something like early 23. That's like I think like late 22, early 23 would be what I was expecting. Um I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, same as Steel though. I find it hard to give a shit when it's just like, hey, here's this thing. Check back in a few years' time. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Care right now? So I like for ExileCon, it was cool to know that it was a thing that was happening, and we got a little bit of a taste. Then I basically forgot about it for a long time. And with this one, it did give me quite a bit more excitement because they gave us a lot of information, a lot of new footage about it, and it like reminded me that it existed and was something to care about. So it was really cool, and I loved seeing everything they saw, and it was more than I thought we'd ever see. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, put it on the back burner and stop caring for another like year or two.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I was particularly. I think the most exciting thing for me was just the boss bar. I I love it. I think that's such. I hope that is something I hope goes in before PoE 2. Like, please give us that now.
Yeah, I could see that coming in sometime soon. Pretty clean.
Oh, imagine if that's just in now. Imagine if we start this league and it's just there.
Which is tomorrow,
Yeah,
best league ever.
yeah.
Mervale, massive boss bar.
Oh, that'd be so nice.
And massive loot, you know, very exciting. I
I
mean, I will say, like low key, I do so something I've always liked about Diablo, specifically D2, obviously, and D1, was the lore and the story and the
yeah.
cinematics. And so it was really cool to see, like, I might actually give a shit about PoE 2 story. Because the
True.
PoE 1 story, I'm like very like
True.
yeah, at most I'll watch like Noodles videos about lore at most, right? I'm not gonna I even have the achievement for listening to all the dialogue, but I just literally speedrun it. I didn't read
Right,
any
right, right.
listen to any of
Yeah.
it.
No, for sure. I think yeah, and Kitten Kat Noodle does make really really good lore videos for those that aren't aware. But I think I kind of agree there. It's a bit of a shame because Path of Exile does have really cool lore, but it's kind of hidden and very very hard to actually like find and experience for yourself. But there is a lot of things I'm excited for in PoE too. Something I do want to talk about is the gem system. How do you guys feel about that? The sockets going away and well, I mean, it's gonna be easier to upgrade and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, it should be pretty game changing. It's still a bit confusing as to how it actually works and all that, but I mean, overall, if it does what I think it does, then you get to just play around with so much more shit now, and
Mm.
your characters can become much more versatile. Um, so it's hard to say what the effect will be or exactly what it does, but I mean, I'm excited to play around with that sort of stuff. I'm always the kind of guy that needs to get your hands on it to know what's going to happen or
Yeah.
what it means, as opposed to understanding it from afar. So yeah, can't give too much input.
Still?
Yeah, I mean, I was so like Mathil said, after ExileCon, kind of put it on the back burner, kind of forgot about it. So just being reminded, like when they switched out gear and you didn't have to re-socket, re-link, re-chrome,
Mhm.
right? You can just swap out gear on the fly. That's really cool. Something that that's something I really like doing, like just gear swapping, right? I like that idea, and being able to organically upgrade your gear without having to do all this fiddling. I really like that. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. I think that's really cool too. Um, I may be a little bit nostalgic, but at least as somebody who does play as many hours, and obviously I don't have a problem getting six things, so I'm slightly biased here. But I will always like remember my first few six things and what of an exciting moment that was. So I don't know. I'm definitely gonna have a bit of a hard time letting go with that.
Hmm.
This
Yeah, I
guy
guess
and
that
his
makes
six
sense.
link RNG.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of exciting things. I think one of the other most exciting things for me is it does look like it opens up for a lot more interesting like end game boss fights with things like the roof caving in and obviously we've already been seeing like more sort of advanced mechanics with things like the Maven with the having the memory game and things like that. Do you guys think that is a good direction for Path of Exile to have like more intricate mechanics at the end game still?
Yeah, for sure. It's just they need to be kind of intuitive enough is the only difference.
Yeah.
Like something you get like there's the unfortunate thing about Maven, like for example, Maven's a great fight overall and very fun and I loved it, but no one's doing that blind. Like no one's figuring that out just by themselves by going in for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's the shame. That's how I would have wanted to do it. That's how I would have liked to have experienced it or actually beaten it. And I did try that and it was just an absolute fucking mess. But like that's just what I mean. They need the mechanics need to make sense and be kind of intuitive and uh something you've at least experienced before or seen before that's then amplified so that it makes sense as opposed to just crowdsourcing information from other people and then going, oh yeah, that's how that works and I've seen that done before on someone else's stream, because doing it blind is how these games should be done, I think. And if it doesn't make enough sense, then it's just not that good of a initial boss fight, really. But yes,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
mechanics are great, and I look forward to more like that for sure.
I'm kind of like mixed because so for starters, they do try to tell you there was an attempt, right? There's a reason the memory game ramps, right? It starts off with 3, then 5, 6, and then obviously the final. Maybe I shouldn't be. Am I spoiling? Is this a
No,
spoiler?
it's fine.
But anyway, and then obviously the final form where you gotta like dodge the lasers and do the memory game at the same time, right? So there was an attempt at trying to tell you the mechanics, but maybe obviously it didn't. It's still a bit like, yeah, right. It would be. I can't imagine somebody doing Maven blind, like actually blind. It would be really really hard. Um, but then on the other hand, you also got to keep in mind PoE is such a community based game. It is kind of like normal to like not play the game blind. Like I think what was it, Moon did a blind run and the game was like 3,000 times more difficult than it needed to be. So
Yeah.
it's blind. I don't know if blind runs are necessarily the common way to play PoE. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. anyway.
Yeah, like because of that, I'm actually a big fan of things like Itziri, where you have like the normal, slightly easier version that lets you learn the fight, and then Uber is here where you crank it up to 11, and you do like kill the player most likely because it's faster and maybe you're not used to the timings and stuff. But I love that version, and you don't necessarily need every boss to be like Itziri and Uber Itziri, but I would like to see more of it.
I mean,
Um,
going with Itziri though, like you're dead to mirror if you hit it, right?
yeah, true, very
So
true.
I mean,
Yeah, so your own words, Cirrus is the perfect boss fight because it ramps in that way. You start out with Awakening, 0, and you know the mechanics, and then by the time you get to Awakening 8, it's just slightly harder and everything. But it's exactly what you just said. So
Sure.
perfect boss fight.
I do like that about series, but inside that fight, there's also some things like really, really unintuitive. Like I remember watching several streamers, like for example, Carnage, do the fight for the first time. They hadn't seen it before, and when he goes up in the air, everyone is like, "Do I have to do something, or is it just chilling? Is
yeah,
he what's happening now?" Right? I think here is like a perfect thing to put in something like maybe Zana appearing from Portal and be like, I don't know. Maybe you need to do something to make him come back down or say like go under him. It's his only weakness. I don't know, but like something, right? At least with the Shaper and Elder fight, Sonic goes like, to me, exile.
Yeah, no, look, I was memeing about it being perfect boss fight. I'm just
I
saying
know.
it's your parameter that you've set there. On that, yeah, it's exactly correct. It's confusing because I remember my first time doing it as well. I went in blind and I basically ran around like a dickhead for 4 minutes while he's just like in the air. I'm going, all right, he's coming down any second. Now, something's gonna happen. He's fucking, and people like you're supposed to run under him. I'm like. I'm not reading it, and I'm just an asshole doing nothing at that time, just because it made no sense for me to run under him, and then he like comes down.
Yeah. That's his only weakness. It's his kryptonite. Just doesn't he gets like really paranoid when someone's directly under him. I don't, yeah, it's a bit weird. I hope we do see more like instructions like that in the future. But yeah.
Mm.
Um Is there anything else you guys wanna talk about or bring up, like, podcast-wise? Any other topics?
Uh, I didn't plan anything, didn't think about anything ahead of
No, it's
time
all good.
because I was completely winging it.
You did very well for winging it. It was a very, very enjoyable podcast. Steel, what about you?
oh, I remember thinking I had like one story I wanted to tell Mathil,
Mhm.
but one little interesting story.
Yeah.
So I remember obviously when Mathil popped off with the spectral throw build, right? The classic Mathil spectral throw build back in the day. And I
Mm.
remember my entire guild was like obsessed with this build. Everyone was playing this build, right? It was the build, right? And so the funny story here though is one of my guildmates loved this build so much that they had a supporter pack to design one of the uniques, right? So this is how you know it's old because you can't buy these anymore, right? Um, and I
Mm.
remember he made an item, and he wanted to be cheeky because I don't know if I mean, obviously you made the build. You remember attack speed was that's how you scaled the flat, right? You got the
True.
auras and the jewels and everything, right? The rings, and so he wanted to make a sword. He wanted to sneak this by the balance team, right? And it was called Fidelitas Spike, and he wanted it to have 50% more attack speed, local attack speed, and he wanted to
Mm.
sneak it by as this common leveling unique, and it almost made it through, and then at last minute it got pulled because someone was like, "I know what you're trying to do. You sneaky boy. I know what you're trying to do." And so they pulled it, nerfed it, and then he was like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah. You've changed the entire unique now. I don't want it." And so he ended up making another one. But the funny thing is, years and years later, as you guys know, Fidelity Spike now exists in the game as its nerfed version, and it is just a leveling item. But basically, he was trying to sneak in this T1 Mathil unique for this build at the time. But yeah, and that's the story. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean that would have been cool for sure. So you're saying they put it in as their own unique years later?
no. So obviously, it literally was finished, right? And then GGG nerfed it last second because they realized what was happening.
Right.
And so they just years later they just add because it was done, right? It was done and it was balanced and everything. So they just added it to the game because why not?
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
but
what I
yeah,
meant. So they just added it themselves later because it was already finished.
yeah, right.
That's pretty
Yeah,
funny. So
But
you got a free
I think it
unique.
wouldn't have mattered. By the time he would have added his unique, it was nerfed. Like there was one patch, I don't know, a couple leagues into that they had like the whole nerf Mathil board and shit. And then like for that build, it was hit by like everything. Like it was hit by 6 different things, and like 5 of my builds got nerfed, and that one in particular took like so many just beatings that it wouldn't have mattered if it had a special unique.
Yeah.
The good old days. Oh, that was awesome. That feels like forever ago. And now maybe with like the Nexus store stuff, maybe eventually you'll be able to sell like Mathil banana cosmetics.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too late on that front. If this is their attempt at giving me $500,000, it's a bad one, because I'm probably gonna make like $20 off this Nexus store thing.
Yeah,
At
that's
least the way
20
it's
bucks more
implemented
than you
right
had
now.
before. That's some cosplay equipment right there.
Oh yay! I'm
A
so
hot tub
excited
fund,
about
dude.
that.
True.
Hot tub fund. Yeah, like I said, technology ain't there. Not in this area. Maybe somewhere else.
All right. Well, I think that is a good time to call the podcast. We started with hot tubs. We're ending with hot tubs. Mathil, tell us a little bit more. Where can we find more Mathil?
Jesus, where do I exist these days? Mostly Twitch. I do post a bit of YouTube, but I've kind of tapered back on that. So that's YouTube as well, Mathilification. Otherwise, Twitch, Mathil1. I'm usually on around this time. So traditionally, I would start my stream a couple hours ago and then do a 6 or 8 hour stream. Usually playing PoE. Have been toying around with a bit of Binding of Isaac recently as well during the downtime of Path of Exile's late league. And then, yeah, I've got a Twitter, Mathil exists, I think it's what it is. And I've got an Instagram, same sort of thing. But that's just usually some climbing content.
And hot tub soon.
And hot tubs soon. So tune in for some sweet, hot tub action. You can't afford to not be there. Disclaimer, there probably won't be any hot tub action.
And you're going live after this, right?
I mean, I suppose so.
Awesome.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Good to
But
hear
yep.
it. Good to hear it. And Steelmage, tell us a little bit more about you.
Right. Well, I'm a terrible content creator, so I don't do the YouTubes or anything like that. But I do live on Twitch. Twitch TV Steelmage. And also I do tweet sometimes, very rarely, but not really enough to not commonly enough to have the actual Steelmage Twitter handle. I just have the 2 on the end. So that's badass. But yeah. I'll be living 24/7 basically at Leaguestarters, so that'll be good.
Awesome. Good to see it. And you actually are almost always living at Leaguestart. So it's I mean, personally, I hope you're gonna have a turn for the worst and maybe you'll beta test some mechanics that I can like chill out with a little bit now. But
Yeah.
thank
That's
you.
gonna run out.
Yeah, it has to, right? It has to. Copium. Either way, thank you so much to both of you for joining me, and a huge thank you to chat for joining us. You guys are amazing, and I hope you guys enjoy the show. My name is Zizaran on all medias, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, and I'll be live a lot at the coming League Start. We have a lot of new player content on YouTube with League Starters and stuff like that, so make sure you check that out. And I hope you all enjoy the podcast. Thank you for spending time with us, and we'll see you at League Start.